Are your hands tied really? Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, and I could get out of that pretty easily, right? My hands were tied, but were they really tied? Were they tied to the point where I couldn't do anything? I couldn't move. There was nothing I could do. Our idiom for Supersize Your Business today, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, documenting my journey as I transition from the brick and mortar world, corporate world of business, to the online world, and a little bit of back and forth. But today, our idiom for Supersize Your Business was hands are tied. And I got to thinking about it this morning. I looked up the origin, which is pretty interesting. It actually comes back from the 17th century. In 1642, I guess he was a clergyman named Thomas Fuller. He wrote in a document called the Holy State that when God intends a nation shall be beaten, he ties their hands behind them. I don't know about you, but with COVID and all the craziness that's been going on politically and everything else in America, sometimes you gotta wonder if we don't feel like our hands are tied. But the truth is, our hands are never really tied, right? There's always possibilities. And I compare this particular idiom to the idiom, I can't. There's no such thing as can't. My dad taught me as a little girl, and my sisters as well, that there's no such thing as can't. You might not want to do something, you won't do it, you shouldn't do it, you don't feel like doing it, you resist it, but can you not do it? I mean, there's very few things, and of course we all have physical limitations and mental limitations, but for the most part, if you want to learn, be, or do, or have anything, it is absolutely possible for you. Nobody can stop you from creating it in your life but you. And I don't know if people really believe that or not. Sometimes I don't even believe it, but it's absolutely true, and I've proven it in my life over and over and over again. With some of the things that I've done and some of the things that I've wanted, that people tell me, oh, you're just absolutely crazy, that's never going to happen. And then at a time shorter than anybody, including me, believe possible, voila, that thing happens. So, of course, that works both in good and bad ways. Sometimes bad things happen faster than we could imagine possible. And it usually, and I would say always, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say always, is because of our thinking. And it might not be our conscious thinking that causes and creates those things to happen in our life, but it is our thinking, our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings on a subconscious level. And like so much of our life, it is controlled on a subconscious level. Most of what we do, most of what we think, most of what we say, most of what we feel is automatic. That means it's coming from our subconscious, which is part of us, and we're responsible for it. But we're not consciously aware that it's going on. And until we take control of that and tap into it and say, maybe I should pay attention, and I should direct my thoughts, and I should think about things the way I want them to be instead of the way they are or they have been in the past. I think it's almost worse to think of things the way they were in the past, and that drags us down more than thinking and being honest with the way things are right now in our lives, in every area and aspect of our life. Definitely have not had enough coffee yet today. So, hands are tied. Are your hands really tied? Are your hands tied, honestly, really, with respect to any area or aspect of your life? I think about, get comfy here, I think about my relationships in my life and my marriage, because I'm divorced, so obviously my marriage didn't work out the way I had planned. And I think about that, and I realize that a lot of times I felt like my hands were tied, like I was controlled, like I had to do things, or I should do things to be a good wife and to be a good mother. And come to find out that, number one, those things didn't work for me. They didn't make me feel good, and I wasn't happy in the situation. And they didn't work for my ex-husband either, because neither one of us were particularly happy with, a lot of it. We butted heads on how to raise the kids in certain ways. We butted heads on the kids' education. We butted heads on the way things should be in certain areas. Now, our core values matched, which was, why I didn't see any real red flags. But if we look back, we see red flags. We just choose to ignore them when we're in love. So, big lessons learned in relationships and in business and in life. In my businesses, there were a lot of times when I felt that my hands were tied. Working with a lot of different governmental agencies, there's a lot of rules and a lot of expectations on us depending on the industry that we're in. Or in corporate America, there were a lot of rules and regulations and how you act in a corporation and da-da-da-da-da, and you feel like your hands are tied because you don't want to lose your job. Well, then COVID comes along, blows up everything, and we feel again like we're just the victims and our hands are tied. I guess that's what bothers me. Hands are tied is taking the victim stance, and if we take the victim stance, we are frozen. We can't do anything. But if we decide we're going to be the solver of the problems, take the solution, instead of focusing on the problems, we're going to focus on the solutions, we're not a victim anymore. We can take responsibility. We can do something, even if it's just changing our mind about the situation that we're in. The people that have weathered the COVID storm, and I'm going to call it a storm, feels like a tsunami, to be honest, the best are those that have said, this happened. It's like the weather. The weather happens. There's nothing we can do about it. We just deal with and make appropriate changes in our plans and our attire and our behavior according to what happens with the weather, because we know with 100% certainty we have no way to control the weather. The same is true of COVID-19 and situations like that. COVID happened. We can complain about it. We can moan about it. We can whine about it and focus on the problem, but that does, or where it came from, or all these things, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is, how are you going to move forward in your life toward the things that you want, no matter what's going on outside of you, including things as big as a pandemic. Can't believe I'm saying that. A year ago, I would not, over, well, I guess a year and a half ago, I don't think I'd ever even used the word pandemic, much less thought about it or considered it and with respect to anything in my life, much less a change my business or pivot plan for my business. It just didn't even come into my emergency action plan brain of thinking that a pandemic would happen. Well, maybe because I don't watch the news, I didn't see it coming, but I guess the most of the world didn't see it coming, so I don't feel so bad. So are our hands really tied? Ask yourself today, as you're going about your day, as you're doing the things that you usually do, are things the way you want them to be? And if not, are you okay? Are you willing to settle for that? I know there's been periods of my life where I'll settle for things in my relationship. I'll settle for a relationship that isn't optimal. I'll settle for things being broken in my home because I have other higher priorities, things like that. But was I just choosing to settle consciously, or was I telling myself the story that, oh, there's nothing I can do about it, I don't know how to fix this, and so therefore my hands are tied and I just have to deal with the broken sink or the broken doorknob or the broken handle or the broken screen or whatever it is? Or nowadays, guess what I could do? I can go on YouTube, I can YouTube or Google it, and I can find a solution and a way to fix it that even I can implement, right? Me, a grandma, and an old lady that's not especially handy. I can do a lot of stuff and figure it out, but only if I want to. Isn't that the truth? We only figure things out if we want to. So if we want to use excuses and say our hands are tied, it's okay. People will buy it. Other people will buy it all the time. Oh, this is the law, I can't do it. This is the rule at my business, I can't do it. Here's what school says, so I can't do it. But it's all a way to justify can't. And to me, that means it's not true, that it's a lie, and that our hands aren't really tied. So that was our idiom today for Supersize Your Business, and I quite enjoyed it, actually. Our annual challenge this year is to do one thing every day that centers us, centers me, centers you. From the little journal book, do one thing every day that centers you. We're calling it the All About You 365-Day Challenge because it's got all kinds of activities and sayings and things about getting to know yourself better, getting to understand what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And today was a two-part saying, the second part of it, about, from Nietzsche, that a thought, even a possibility, can shatter us and transform us. So I guess to me that says good and bad things can transform us. Really, any kind of change has the ability to transform us. That change can come from external things like COVID-19 or internal things like a health challenge. So we need to be open to that. And the possibilities are endless in terms of how we can create the life we want. Not that we just have to be flim-flammed around like the wind or the sailboat that is in the wind and just go the direction that the wind is. We can choose what direction we turn our sails, and that will determine how the wind impacts us. The same is true with possibilities to transform. We can decide what we're going to listen to, decide what we're going to read, decide what we're going to think about. I'm getting ready to do another Abel Beckford's learning challenges, reading challenges. Now, I'm legally blind, and I'm doing a reading challenge. That tells you how important it is to me that I continue to learn and grow and evolve as a person. We're just doing 8 books for the month of June, which works for me because the last half of June, I'm in charge of my granddaughters. And so I'm going to be super duper busy. And I want to make sure that the first half of the June, I can do the majority of the work on those books in terms of at least absorbing the content, and then I can do whatever activities she's going to have us do with respect to reading for learning, and solving problems the last half of the month. But I'm going to front load the month so that I don't have to feel like I can't do it. Now, if I can find a way to consume books these days still, then are your hands really tied? Do you really not have time? Can you really not do it? Do you say, I can't do a reading challenge, I can't do a challenge, I can't do this, I can't do that? Really? Or do you just need to challenge yourself to be more honest with yourself and say, maybe there is no such thing as can't. Maybe Sharon's dad was smart when he taught her that. So I don't know, up to you. We all have to, choose our own lives and be responsible for the actions we do or do not take. But that's what I'm working on. So I do have that reading challenge coming up, and I'm cheating a little bit and starting early. I don't know what's the date today, the 28th. So I am starting a little early, but it is because I need a little more time, and I have to get my technology in order so that I can consume the content of those books. All right. Any questions? If you don't know what to do next, if you're stuck, if you feel like your hands are tied in a situation, hit me up in a direct message or in the comments below, and we'll together find out and figure out what is your next step. I'm not going to charge anybody to do this. I'm offering this while I have the time and energy to do it. Won't make the offer forever because I'm getting busier and busier, but I want to get back, and that's a quick and easy way I can get back. I'm not going to give you a year of coaching. I'm just going to help you figure out what your next step is, how to untie your hands, or how to see that your hands have never really been tied at all, and that maybe you, like me, are tying my own hands so that I don't have to face tough decisions or tough choices in life. Because sometimes we tie ourselves up, we tell ourselves we don't know the answer, or we don't know what to do, or we're stuck because we know the thing we need to do, and it's going to cause a lot of change in us and in our life and in the people around us, and we're afraid. Whenever I feel like I can't do something, or I don't want to do something, or I'm procrastinating, it's always, if I boil it down, to I'm afraid of something. Now, I don't like to think that I'm a scaredy cat or I'm afraid of anything. I mean, I dropped dead and I survived that, so what else is there to be afraid of? But we all have fears, and they're not seated in our conscious mind, our intellect. They're seated in our feelings, our emotions, and our subconscious mind. And they might have been with us for decades or for our whole life, and we have really no idea where they came from. They could have come from one small incident as a child that we have no conscious recollection of, but they've been driving and impacting us our entire life. So we don't have to go looking for them. We don't have to dig. We don't have to figure out, but we can look at what's going on in our life right now, the results we're getting, and if they're not what we want, we need to set a different direction. We need to focus on what we want, the solutions that will get us there, and the next thing that we want to do, or that we can possibly do, to move us in that direction. We don't have to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour in 6.5 seconds. We just want to get 100 miles from where we are. We just have to take that first step. One step gets us closer to that 100 mile away point, right? All right, have a great day. I'm heading off to have a fun and busy day. I invite you to do the same. And I'll, of course, be tomorrow to fill you in on what she's up to now. Have a great day.